Welcome, welcome to In the Paint Studio. I am thrilled that you are here. Let me see who's here. Today we're going to dive into talking about 5 ideas for gathering color inspiration in your sketchbook. So I have lots of samples to share with you. I'm hoping that I um, I keep this a bit brief. Brief for me is probably like half an hour. So we'll see how it goes. Let me see who's here. We've got a worldwide audience. Hi, Francesca from Ireland. Amazing. Irina, nice to have you here. Slovenia, Majda, nice to have you here. We have a lot of people in the UK. This must be a good time in the UK. Let's see. Hi, Anna, Arena, Frida from California, Cheryl. Hey, Cheryl. Pennsylvania, Kay, Central Oregon. Ruth, nice to have you here. She's from Texas. And Linda says from sunny California. Yes, it is nice and sunny right now. We're going to have 90-degree weather today. So it was like in the 60s all last week. And then this coming up week is all like in the 80s and 90s. I just fixing my hair. I just got back from earlier. I do a really early workout on Saturdays at 7:30. So I then took Indy for a walk and tried to get out there before it gets too hot. And so now we're going to dive in. I'm so excited that you guys are all here. Please say hi if you are here. We have a lot of people who have joined in. I just decided to do this fun pop-up last night. I was like, I want to do a live stream. So thank you all for joining me. I sent an email out really late last night, so some of you is probably very late. I was watching the Warrior game, which was sad they lost, but they had a good season, so it was fun. But yeah, bummer they're not moving on to the next round in the playoffs. So I am doing a lot right now. We've got a lot going on in the studio. I am designing my next paint collection for Tracy Bautista Color, which will be shipping in late May, early June. And I've got the SWATCH Studio membership that just launched for founding members. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that coming up, and a few other classes that I've been teaching. And then I have something else that I'm going to share with you at the end too. That has to do with journals and sketchbooks. So there is a lot that I want to share today, but I really wanted to give you some really fun ideas for inspiration and how you can use your sketchbook. So a lot of times when somebody says, oh, I have a sketchbook, sometimes we think that they have to be these like beautiful urban sketches full of like full fleshed out artwork and ideas or full paintings. And I just want you to I want to encourage you to use your sketchbook as anything you want. It can be, I like to call it the playground, because you can use it in so many ways. I'm going to share with you a number of my sketchbooks and journals, my art journals, through the years today. And I just wanted to show a peek inside, because I don't work sequentially. I work in like 10 different journals sometimes. They're going on at the same time. So it's probably not the best, I would say not the best route to go if you want to like know exactly where all your sketches are at any given time. But I just prefer to work that way. I've always done that. I use pretty much any kind of paper. There are a few that I have, some of my favorites, but today I just want to share with you how I collect color. And there's lots of different ways that you can do that. And I hope that you take one or two things away and you can use it in your creative practice this coming up. And I would love for you to share in the comments what you use your sketchbook for. If you use it to like really paint and that's all you paint is in your sketchbook or your art journal? Do you use it just to create art in, or do you use it to brainstorm projects? Do you do color swatching? Do you have a journal that's dedicated just to color swatching? If you could share that in the comments, I would love to know. And for those of you, are any of you here joining for the first time and have never heard of me or my art? I'm also broadcasting this live on YouTube Live. So while I'm not monitoring the chat on YouTube too much, I'll look over from time to time. But I am inside of Crowdcast. So if you're on my email list, you got an invite to go to join me inside of Crowdcast. And that's where I follow the chat a little bit more, but I will check in from time to time if you are watching on YouTube Live. So thank you for being here. But if this is your first time, can you put a 1 in the chat too, so I know? And let me just tell you a little bit really quickly. My name is Tracy Bautista, and I am a mixed media artist, an author, a designer, and an educator. And I have been using journals and making journals since I was probably, and sketchbooks since I was probably about 7 or 8 years old. I have to bring, I forgot it. It's out in the front in one of my bookshelves, but I have a little journal that I made out of brown paper bags and like little lunch sacks. And then I tied it with some tulle. It was like one of the very first journals that I ever made, probably when I was like, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12. No, I don't know. I have to go back and look and see if I have the date on there. But I have always loved using sketchbooks and journals, and I use them in a lot of different ways that I'm going to show you right now. So I am going to share these 5 ideas, although they may turn into 10 ideas as I flip through the pages, but I hope you walk away inspired. That is the goal for today. So I wrote a little bit of notes for myself, and I'm going to pull those up and then also pull my camera, or change my camera. So hang tight for 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay, let's see. I just want to check. I'm getting a warning message from my streaming software that the bit rate is slow. But can everybody see me and hear me okay? Just want to check. So we're going to start with number 1, and one of my favorite things to do inside my sketchbooks is to take them outdoors and to observe and look at the vibrant colors that are found inside of flowers, at the beach, at the garden. And so I pulled out one of my sketchbooks for what I do when I am at the beach. And so many of you know my family lives in Hawaii, and so I'm out there visiting them quite a bit. And these sketchbooks, you'll notice that they have a lot of randomness in them. You know, I might stick a sticker in there. This is from the museum. And sometimes I write about what it is that I'm observing. Sometimes it's the places I'm going, but sometimes I'm just collecting color. So I am writing, or I'm doing color swatches. Sometimes it's patterns and textures. So some of the patterns that I was capturing sitting at Lanikai Beach, just with watercolors and water-soluble pencils. So it really is this open playground of of ideas and marks. And so sometimes I'm writing, but really this is how I will sit and collect color. I will bring a set of colors, a little travel size set of colors, and then start to paint while I'm outside. And then that gets kind of brought into the work that I do for some of my paint collections, for larger work. A lot of this idea was then like done on really large pieces of paper. So one of my favorite ways to document color is to use nature and go to places that will inspire me. How many of you love like the botanical garden or hiking and using some of that for your inspiration? And this is a Strathmore Mixed Media journal that I love taking when I travel, just because it's compact and easy to fit in my bag, and it takes a lot of different media on there, so it's nice. And the pages are heavyweight, so you can do a lot of fun stuff, collage and lots of layers. And then there's times when I'll create just some random sketches. This doesn't all fit in the camera. Let's just bring this back up a little bit so you can see it sideways. And you'll notice like I am not worried of it like making a huge pretty like picture. A lot of this is mark making and motifs, because then I take these, and I'll show you in a little bit some of the work that I do digitally. And so I'll capture color in this fashion where I'm playing with different media. So I've got a little bit of acrylic. I've got some of my handmade watercolors and inks in this particular in these particular pieces, but I'm also playing with shapes and just seeing like how I can take that idea. So this whole palette this whole set of a series of sketches and color is from a collection that I have worked on over the years called Foraged, and it brings in the idea of gathering and foraging and fall and autumn, that time of year. And so you'll notice that I am not so much concerned with like the composition, but really playing with the media, playing with the way the colors layer, and also mark making over the top. So I've got like some of my clay paint that I make, and then some of my watercolors, and some acrylic paint on here too, and then a little bit of colored pencil. And then sometimes collecting color for me is just doing it like with printmaking. And so this is all done with printmaking with, I'm thinking this was probably with like a plastic page protector. Those of you who were in my recent class, my abstract playground class, we did a bunch of printmaking using one of these things, a page protector. And so you can really do some fun work just with like a Ziploc bag or a page protector if you want. And then I'm turning this into an acrylic skin. So we talked about that in my recent class. So just number one is nature's palette. And I encourage you to go out and gather color in that way. I still have a bunch of art supplies here. I had a live painting workshop the other day. So another way is to just experiment with color swatches. This is one of my paint making journals, and inside here, every page is color swatches. So I wasn't very good about like writing which collection I was designing, but I can go back and actually remember, like these are actually from some of my very first collections. All of these were 2017 is when I designed these colors, and every page in here is really just playing with color swatches. It's all layers and layers of paints. Sometimes it's more of a composed abstract piece, and then sometimes it's just chucking color. And this is one of my favorite things to do. It's like the simplest thing, but it's just such a fun way to dive into your sketchbook and your journals. If you're stuck on an idea, I always encourage my students to just take out some of your paints and inks or pencils and make color swatches. And the fun thing about this, when you're designing your own colors and when you're making paint and documenting the process, is that I can see the progression of the color that I've designed. And I have actually another journal that I use. So these are just, I test the colors when I'm making them on random papers, and this happens to be one of the journals that I use. But I actually have a paint making like recipe journal where it has more detailed notes. And so this is, as I go through like every collection from this is starting in 2017 and probably goes through maybe a little bit of 2018. There's like the Pop of Spring is in here. I can remember some of these, Boho Caravan, and it's fun to like look through them. And then sometimes I'm just playing with the way the brushes, different brushes apply. So, you know, your sketchbook or your journal, you can do whatever you want inside of them. And that's what I want you to just walk away with, like, just like having the permission to play. This is playing around with some of my waxed wedges. These are wax crayons I used to make, or that I made, and I created a new formula, and I have my now wax paint bars. But these are more, a little bit harder crayon, but I was playing with how they act as a resist with my inks and paints. So color swatching is number 2. And if you flip through many of my journals, you'll see that that's what is in here. So some pages, really, it's just like playing with color swatching. This is my most recent collection, the Wander collection. And you could create a whole sketchbook that's just dedicated to color exploration. And sometimes I'm testing out my pencils and paints and seeing what happens when I layer them on top of each other, and some of my pigment bars. And then it's once in a while you'll see that I am actually sketching out an actual painting or an idea for a painting inside my books. But a lot of this is really play. You know, I just kind of open up a page, and sometimes I date things. I'm trying to be better about dating them, but obviously I didn't do, and I just did this like a week or so ago. But there's times when, like this one actually is good. That says January 25th, 2023. So there's sometimes when I date things and sometimes not. And you don't always have to use a bound sketchbook like this. You'll also see in a lot of my work, I work on various substrates because I love to see what the paints and inks do. So I will also collect color this way, where I am creating these little swatch cards on a variety of paper. And many of you know who subscribe to my Tracy Bautista color products that we do these swatches in our quarterly workshop. And I just love seeing how the color reacts on a variety of papers. So, and swatches can be like this, where you're just like doing a little circle or a little square of the color. But sometimes swatching color could also, you know, be a little bit larger, where you're actually maybe thinking about a little bit more of an idea for your paintings. So I love doing these little like color idea studies on a variety of papers also. So again, like this some of these things will get bound into an actual book, that a handmade book that I create, or they may get tipped inside of a sketchbook, a store-bought sketchbook. And just more from like more color swatching, but also another idea is collecting color for when you travel and for places that you go. I find that there is a color palette associated with every city or country, that, and mainly cities, because I'll bring out my iPad too, because the color palette, like when I would travel to Australia, the color palette for Australia, for Melbourne, and I don't know if we have any Australians on today live. It might be not a good time, but the color palette in Melbourne is this like really bright, just kind of graffiti inspired, and I think that's because when I went there, I visited Hosier Lane, where it's all the graffiti artists, and so a lot of the colors that I pulled from those travel photos were really bright and vibrant. And then the Sydney palette, which is the one that I have on my desk right now, that one here is definitely more muted, a lot of landscape inspired, just beautiful greens and ochres, and like this Australian red ochre that I purchased when I was out there. So definitely use your city or town or places that you travel for that color inspiration. And that's the same with, I pulled out my Lani Kai sketchbook earlier. Here are some of the color swatches that I created for that collection, and the actual paints that I created. So these are all colors that I created for that Lani Kai collection, but I will also make these little color swatches that get put into a book or inside of a journal. And one of my favorite ways to, before I do this, to capture the color is to take photographs. And I encourage you to always have your camera with you and to spend some time taking photographs. And then you can use them when you get home to inspire your color. So another tool that I really love and I use quite often is Pantone. I just had these sitting on this piece of paper, so I should have put it on a piece of white paper, but Pantone chips are great. These are another really great way to collect color. If you have a color chip book, you can actually buy these on the Pantone site. I've had this book for over 20 years. It's got, I don't know how many of these little squares of color in them, but I had it from when my days as a graphic designer in Silicon Valley. So it just sits on my shelf, and I pull it out from time to time to use it to collect color. So I'll put these inside of my journals, or I'll put it up on an inspiration board. Okay, so we've talked about 3 different things. And the next one I want to share is, well, actually, I want to share one more travel thing that I pulled. And these are from some of my handmade art journals. And if you have my book, Handmade Art Journals and Sketchbooks, if you have my book, Collage Unleashed, these projects are in there. That was my very first book. But I just thought I'd bring this out because I opened it up. I was looking through it the other day, and there is a bunch of stuff from traveling here. So my sister and I took a trip to Thailand back in, I think it was 2004. So a lot of these things get put into my sketchbooks too. So I'll put like tickets, travel tickets. I'll put maps inside there, and then use that to draw a little bit more. And sometimes it's my luggage tags, and anything goes. You can put ephemera, you can put all kinds of different things. And this particular journal actually flips and folds different ways, and like a lot of my books do. And so I thought I'd share that for the travel. And then one last travel. This book was one of my favorites to design. It is a travel sketchbook, and I documented some of my Bali trip from 2008. And so really taking your photographs and using those as kind of the jump starts for the color that you choose for your sketchbook or journal pages is a really fun exercise. And then just even collaging them in. So what I did was took some of the photographs that I took while I was out there and then collaged these into the pages with tape, but also with my Collage Podge glue adhesive and also gel medium. So playing around with photos, I think, is a really fun way to help you gather color. And I use a lot of photos now digitally to help me pull color palettes inside of Procreate. And I'll pull out some of those now so you can kind of get an idea. How many of you use Procreate? If you could put put Procreate in the chat, that would be great. I'd love just to know. So we covered using the Nature's palette, experimenting with color swatches, and travel or cultural inspirations. So those are some of my favorite ways to use and gather color. And then up next, I'm going to talk a little bit about art appreciation. How many of you love to go to the museum or to a gallery? And there's so much that you can learn from just sitting and absorbing and looking at the art. I'm one of those people who, when I go to the museum, I get close enough to the piece, as close as I can to the piece, so I can see the actual brushstrokes or like what they're using. And I try to guess before I read about what it is that they use. I personally try to guess what the mediums are that they use. And because I've been doing mixed media for over 20 years, I'm pretty good at figuring out like how somebody, I can deconstruct a painting very easily now. And so it's always a fun thing to do and to kind of and to explore when you travel or when you go to places like the museum. But I'm going to pull out my iPad and just show you a couple of things because we've got a lot of Procreate people. Got some hands up. Cheryl says, I love Procreate. Let's see. She said, I love seeing art. I just went to an art show last weekend. Yes, I try to go to museums everywhere that I travel. And also I've been to Art Basel in Miami. That was really amazing. Just seeing all the art inside that. There was so many places to visit that have art. But I love like just little tiny random little galleries that you walk into also, and even in coffee shops when you see art. I mean, there's so much that you can learn and see. And what I encourage you to do is to use those as inspiration, not to copy what they are creating, but really to look at it from like the color, the story, like what is the story that somebody is telling you with their art. And also the textures, and how could you translate that into your work? And so let me come back down here and actually let me get another piece of paper. I've got a lot of paint on this other one, so I don't want to get paint all over my iPad. Okay, so let's see. Bring up Procreate. And there was actually, let me see where it is. Is it this one? Yeah. Before I move on to Procreate, while we're talking about museums, this is some of my color and actually more mark making exploration. I got in trouble because I brought, when I went to HOMA, this is the Honolulu Museum of Art. I love that place. It's so fun. I'm a member. I purchased a membership because every time I go, I usually take one of my family members there or my nieces. And then I also love just to go there and sketch and just work for an afternoon. So I was in one of the galleries and I wanted to quickly sketch one of Monet's paintings. And I didn't realize that you couldn't have like any kind of watery thing. And I just had a water brush. And so I was using that. And so one of the guards came in and he was like, "What kind of material are you using?" And so then I had to put that away. So I had to stop sketching with my water brush, but then I just had a bunch of pencils and pens. So I don't have a lot of color in this particular series, but I just want to show you how you can take what you see and start sketching. So now I think it still might be up, but right now the Awakening exhibit by Rebecca Laws is up, and it's amazing. If you have a chance to go, if you're in Hawaii, if you're on Oahu, in Honolulu, definitely take a visit there, because if you're not familiar with her work, she designs these immersive 3-dimensional dried floral exhibits. So you basically walk through, and I should find a picture, you walk through this like sea of flowers, and it's really amazing. Like it's thousands of flowers that are hanging and that are strung, and you just get to walk through it. Oh, here's a picture I'll show you. My sister and I went twice, and then my sister came with me. So they wouldn't let you take pictures like going through it. Let me see if I have one from the outside that I can show you. They wouldn't, you could only take pictures like at the end, because I think they just didn't want people to hold up traffic. But there was not very many people when I was there. So I was actually standing and sketching while I was there. Let me see if I have a picture because I went there a couple of times. Okay, this might be, oh, here. So here is what this looks like. Let's see if you can see it. But look at that. These are strung. So there's like strings of all these dried flowers. And there's some native flowers, but then there's some that she actually had. So they collected them from Hawaii, and also it's Rebecca Louise Law. That's her name. Oh, wait, you can't see that very well. But it is really amazing. So this is me sketching in the gallery that day, and I could only really stand and sketch. So it's just like these strings of flowers. And I thought, oh, this would be really fun to like create this as a backdrop in my studio. It would probably take a long time, but I experimented with that idea, although this is not in color, because I had just, had to use my pencils and whatever pens I had. But it gave me, some really fun things that I could experiment when I come home later. So the idea of just capturing what you see when you go to a museum, I think, is a really great way to definitely collect mark making and also collect color. Okay, we'll show you. Let me get this a little darker so you can see the screen, and we'll zoom in just a tad. So there's lots of ways that I collect color using my iPad. Here is one of, and you might have seen this in some of the marketing for my SWATCH Studio, but I took some of my drawings, a few of my photographs that I've taken, and pulled a color palette from that for this particular inspiration board. So this is a way to use your photos digitally. How many of you, there's a lot of you I know who've taken my classes, but how many of you use Procreate in this way where you are taking your photos and then using it to gather color? And I have my creative studio planner has these pages where you can, there's like a little palette at the bottom there, and then you can collage your photographs in here and also write ideas and notes and then pull a color palette. So this is some of the digital kits and playbooks that are part of my Swatch Studio. But I'm just going to grab a couple more. I want to show you the palettes from, so here's a palette from just a bunch of landscapes that I pulled. And then I wanted to show you the Melbourne and Sydney palettes that I pulled so you can kind of get an idea for how you do that with photographs. I do that often also. Here's one for Monet's Garden. So when I went to Giverny in France, I took all those photos, and all of these other pieces I made digitally from photographs and from my paintings, and then pulled the color palette there. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll print these out, and then I'll mix color either with pigments or with inks and paints, and then create actual physical artwork on canvases or on paper. And then let me just pull, show you the, I have to organize this thing again. But you can see, like, sometimes I even pull color palettes from my own handmade art supplies. So these are my pigment stones and pigment sticks. And so I created this rustic woodland winter from the pictures of my actual art supplies that I made. And see if I can quickly find this. I always keep saying, like, it would be awesome to have a search feature inside of Procreate for the gallery, because I mean I've got hundreds of pieces of artwork in here. So here is the Sydney palette that I pulled, and I'll show you, let me take the palette off, but these are some of the pictures that were from Sydney when I took all of these when I was there. So we went to the zoo, the sky. At that time when we went, it was early 2020, right before the shutdown, and this was when the fires were happening. It was really bad smoke, but the sky was just like these amazing colors. There was a peacock in one of the places that we stayed, and so that was part of the inspiration there. So there, you know, I'm pulling stuff from travel, but from everyday life from travel also, and then pulling a color palette from that. And then I can use that in so many different ways. I'll print it out and put it into one of my sketchbooks or paint journals. And then I want to show you the Melbourne palette because it's like so vibrant. And so I have a layer, translucent layer on the top of that. But you can see I went to visit Language Artist Colors. What's the name of their shop? I forget the name of their shop. But they had this like pigment display that was really cool. And then there's lots of the graffiti that's there. But I mean, look at the difference in the color palette. You've got all these bright colors. This was the sunset from the Louis Bar, which is on in the Rialto Towers, like on the 55th floor. Beautiful. We sat there for like 3 hours, and you should have seen the color that the sunset changed to during those 3 hours. It was incredible. And so I've taken this one, and you can see the difference in the color palette here. I mean, it's like really vibrant and bright. Let me take that out. A totally different palette. And so you may have a bunch of your own photos. So I encourage you to grab your phone and scroll through your albums, and then create a separate album that has to do with somewhere you've traveled. It could be also a place like the garden or a botanical garden you've gone to, and create a separate album from there, and then use those photos to inspire the colors that you choose for your work. And you may start to build out a collection of work based on that particular theme or idea. And really use the memories and the stories and the places that you've traveled to inspire your own artwork. And so that's kind of what today was all about, really showing you like how you can take all these little bits and pieces and how you can really discover color anywhere and everywhere. You know, the peacock feather is such a great example because there is like, I don't know, 10 different colors in the peacock feather, maybe 7 to 10 colors. And, you know, using things from nature like that is a great way if you're ever stuck for color palette ideas when you're painting, is to look into nature, because it will definitely give you lots of inspiration, along with, like I said, again, your travel photos. And so I think that was everything. We talked about nature's palette. We talked about everyday life and travel, art appreciation, experimenting with color swatches, and we talked a little bit about cultural inspirations. I have even more cultural inspirations inside a lot of my books, but I wanted to show you a couple more things before we go. And I'm just going to pull them up here. Let me switch my camera one more time. Okay. Let's brighten this up so you can see. I'm just pulling out a few things to share with you. So one of the things, ooh, my little bag is spilling. One of the things that you can also do, once you have your idea for your colors and you pulled a color palette, or maybe you grabbed your photos, then you can start pulling from your own stash of stuff. So this little set of paintings and things that I've created is a really great way for me to just start using my own work to use as a reference. So I can hang these up there. They have binder clips on them because they hang usually on my studio wall behind me for color inspiration. So what I did was pulled some of my hand painted paper towels. Many of you who've been here for a long time know that was one of the first things that I was known for was painting on paper towels, because I used to teach K through 12 art, and this was my economical way to teach them how to dye paper. But paper towels make such a beautiful collage paper. And so I pulled that. I pulled one of my handmade papers. This is a technique that I used with I created with pigments and with a few different mediums. And it creates these beautiful textures. So I just pulled things that were sitting in my studio. One of my stencil prints, wax resist, that have the same color scheme. And now I have this beautiful inspiration tray or board. I like to call them flare trays. So I start with some papers and things that I create and that I've made, and then I bring in other things in my studio that I've found. So let's go back. Oh, wrong way, so you can see this a little bit better. So I have these, what I like to call flare trays and kits that I create for myself, but then also I've created to sell. This is one that I kept for myself. And this is part of what the Swatch Studio is. There's 2 levels. So I have a brand new monthly membership and quarterly membership that I'm really excited about. And it's all about color and how you can use these resources that I'm providing to inspire color and to paint and play inside of your sketchbooks and art journals. So in the monthly subscription, you get a digital resource that is a board, and it's a digital board and also a playbook. So if you're familiar with my digital printables and collage papers, art journaling printables or art journal printables, it's kind of like that. I'm going to show you really quick before I dive into the flare kit, because those are a lot of fun. There's lots of texture. But if you saw my most recent, I think it's probably my most recent video on YouTube, I shared a little peek inside one of my digital boards. And so I create these. I'm going to show this to you really quick. I create these for projects that I do for myself, but this is a resource that you will get if you're part of the SWATCH Studio. It's a monthly resource that is based on a theme and has lots of inspiration. There's photographs that I've taken in here. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more so you can see this even better. Let me move this around. There are creative prompts for your sketchbook and journal. There are the printables that you'll get. You can cut and paste these into your journals and sketchbooks. And it's really a resource for you to have a bunch of jump starts in one place. Some of these will link out to other things that you can download. And there's color palettes. So you'll get a color palette associated with the theme. You'll also get ideas for storytelling, creative exercises that you can do with the actual digital kits, and lots of words, things that then you can take these and print them, cut them out, or just use the words in the writing that you're doing or the sketching that you're doing. The photographs are there and the motifs are there to inspire your sketching. There's also color palette little templates that you can use to paint in. And then sometimes I put my collage papers in there. I create these custom collage papers from my artwork. And so that's part of what the digital kit is. You get a board every month that has all these fun photos and ideas. And then you also get a printable kit. This is let me share this with you all. Let me share it on the screen so that you can actually see it a little bit better. So this is a kit of printable pages. You can also use them digitally, and then you can cut them out or just put them inside your sketchbook or a notebook and use these as creative prompts as you work. And so this is like one of my favorite things to do is design these playbooks, because there's so much that you can do with them, both printed and digitally, using them in programs like Procreate or NoteShelf or GoodNotes. But I had some questions about, is it only digital? And no, you can use these printed. So there are fun sheets that you can then print and collage. Like you could cut this apart and collage it into your sketchbook or your journal. And then I have lots of fun inspiration photos. So these are meant for you to use as inspiration for color, for line, for shapes. And I provide color palettes that have Pantone colors sometimes. And sometimes you saw on the board, there's digital hex colors, hex codes, if you need hex codes, if you're familiar with using those. And then there's just some fun jump starts with words and ideas of how you can use these color palettes. So every month you get a set of these journaling cards or inspiration cards and collage sheets that you can then print and or use digitally. So that is just a really quick overview of the digital portion of the SWATCH Studio. And right now it's open for founding member pricing. So it is the lowest it's ever going to be. It's going to close that pricing that it's at right now is going to close on Sunday the 14th. So if you want to join, you can join for 1 month. That was another question I had where somebody asks, do I have to subscribe for a year? No, you can totally join for 1 month and try it out. It's $12 and you get that digital board and you get the printable kit, the playbook with it. And then you also get a video that I walk through like what's in there and some ideas of how you use it. And then once in a while, I'll do some bonus live sessions where we get to play or I share a technique. But really, it's those digital pieces. So it's meant for you to have this like great resource that has jump starts for you. If you're ever stuck with color palettes, with words or questions or prompts, that's what this board is. It's based on a theme. I brainstormed like 50 themes over I sat for like a couple of hours the other day and I had all these ideas. So now I'm paring it down. But the first couple that we're going to dive into, one's called Nature's Graffiti, which I'm really excited about. And then I have another one called Boho Vibes. And so every month you'll get one of these, get a thematic digital kit of inspiration. So I wanted to share that. And then I want to show you, if you upgrade to the Swatch Studio Flare kits, these are physical kits that actually come in the mail. So the size of them it's like a 6x8 package. This one is obviously way bigger. This was something that I used to sell in my shop, and they are full of hand painted. This particular one is hand painted and hand dyed pieces, but the kits that I'm going to be putting together for this particular for the Swatch Studio actually have some of my brand new fabrics and collage papers that I've designed. And so you'll get swatches of those. So the size of what you'll get is a package that's about this size, and you'll get all kinds of fun little embellishments and things that are associated with that color palette. Sometimes they're handmade and hand dyed. Sometimes they are really cool vintage things that I've found. Sometimes you'll get a little hand painted swatch or stamp of something. But it really is going to be different with each one. And each one will have some type of image associated with it. And also just different like bits and baubles and buttons. And so if you like embellishments and want to have a really fun color inspiration flare tray, these are trays of well, I used to put them in trays, but now I usually hang them on clipboards inside of like a clear plastic bag and put them up on my studio wall for inspiration. And sometimes they also get bound into journals. Like I will take all of this and make a sketchbook or a journal cover with it. So there's lots of ways that you can use these dimensional inspiration flare kits or trays that I am putting together every quarter. And this is a quarterly subscription. So when you upgrade to the quarterly subscription, you also get access to the digital versions too. And then this is just another one of my flare trays I put together. You see some of the paint chips that I put in there. But you can also do this with your own stash of stuff. I know we all have lots of things that are in our studio, and it's a really fun way to just gather color inspiration for your sketchbook. So go through all of your beads and baubles and trinkets, and if you have lots of fiber and fabrics, paint chips, you can also put your own paint swatches in there too. These are just from the store that I got, but it's a really fun way to gather inspiration for your sketchbook. You could also do this based on maybe somewhere that you've traveled, gathering things, memorabilia and bits and pieces from a place that you've traveled is another great way to kind of use this idea. And then lastly, before we go, I just want to show you how you can also then turn that idea into kind of a mini color journal or sketchbook. So you can then take some of the inspiration that you've gathered. So this whole this whole kit that I showed you earlier was a lot of purples and blues and greens. And then I turned it into this fun kind of mini sketchbook journal that has lots of different papers in it, but in that color family of from the inspiration board or kit that I created. So let's see. I'm gonna go and look at questions. So I hope that gave you some really good ideas. Hang tight really quick. Okay. Yes, see, so my half hour did not work. I can never talk for a half hour. I get so, there's so much that I always want to say. So thank you for all of you who are still here. We have a big handful of you who are still here. So you can always come back and watch the replay here in Crowdcast or on YouTube. It'll be on YouTube also. So you can go back and if you missed anything, just go back and put it on while you're working in the studio. Let me just see what everybody's comments say. And if you have any questions, please share them in the questions tab. If you want to register and join me for the Swatch Studio before the pricing goes up, I'm going to close the membership to join probably in a week or so, I think. But if you want to get the founding member price, you want to join by tomorrow. So you can click the button underneath and it tells you everything. There's a button underneath the video that says join Swatch Studio. Oh, and if you actually join by today, if you join as with a yearly subscription, or with the upgraded quarterly subscription, I'm going to be teaching a bonus workshop that teaches creating one of these journals. So definitely, if you want to upgrade to that, you get access to that workshop. Okay, let's see. Thank you, Jenny. She says, love, love, love. Francesca says, I thought I was the only person to deconstruct artists' work. Yes, I know. She says, I've learned so much. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm always like, how would they have done that? You know, like I look at the way a mark is on a canvas, or I look at the way the layers are. It's really interesting to kind of like think about how they created that. But then also, even when you look at like assemblage, like three-dimensional sculpture kinds of things too, looking at like all the different bits and pieces and how they put things together is always so fascinating. Linda says, I've been looking for a good recommendation for an iPad so I can start using Procreate. Oh, yes. Yeah, there are lots of different styles. So Jessica gave her, I think, some really good feedback about having a 11 iPad Pro, and she absolutely loves it. But she does wish that she had gone for the larger 12-inch, though. Yes, I can say that now that I have the 12-inch, I got the very first one that came out back in 2018. I would not go back to a smaller one. So if you can get the highest like one you can get, I would definitely recommend that. The biggest screen. Although I did for like 2012 till 2018. So 6 years. That 6 years? Yes. I used an iPad mini with Procreate. And I mean, I created a ton of work on that little tiny screen. So it is doable, but when you have the large screen, it's just so much nicer. And definitely get an Apple Pencil. As for the memory, I would say get as big of memory as you can afford. I have, I think, the largest because I do so much work for my business, and I also use cloud storage. So the key to using a device like that is to make sure you have cloud storage, because you want to be able to back up all of your canvases, and Procreate canvases can get very, very, large. And especially if you have a lot of layers. So definitely go in there and play with the different sizes, because you can experiment with them, but I would definitely recommend getting the largest one you can and the one with the most memory, because I also I shoot a lot of video. I'm doing a lot of stuff with photos. So you may not need the most memory because you can always store things on the cloud, but it is helpful to have as much memory as you can. Yes. Thank you, Ellen. She says, beautiful concept. Thank you so much. I think she was referring to my digital boards. Francesca says, boho vibes is great. I will be looking forward to seeing that. My whole home is boho inspired. Oh, yes, I know. So is mine. Cheryl says, I will definitely be going for the larger iPad Pro. Yes, it's so worth it. And an Apple Pencil is a must. Yes, yes, yes. And I do teach classes on Procreate, if you're wondering. I do have my digital canvas class, which I normally open for fall enrollment, but I think I may be doing, we'll see, I may be doing a fun summer accelerator. We'll see. I'm going to see what my schedule looks like. But you can definitely, I'm trying to close out my window here so I can see my camera and stuff again. You can definitely learn Procreate from lots of different places, but the way that I teach it is from a mixed media perspective. So you really get to dive into mixed media and Procreate, and also how I use Procreate throughout the entire creative process. So I'm using it from, you saw, like ideation and pulling color palettes all the way through designing collage and pattern. I didn't pull out the actual digital pieces, but I have some of my collage pieces, my digital abstracts. And so this is a class actually I'm teaching coming up, and it's all about how to use Procreate to create like visual storytelling and creating really beautiful collage work using it. So I think when you look at the feed of Procreate's Instagram feed, you'll notice it's a lot of illustrators and a lot of people using it for drawing, but there's so much more you can do with it, from creating brushes to collage. I love using it for collage and just even pulling color palettes. So definitely have a look at my Procreate classes if you're interested. And then let me see what this last question is down here before we go. Let's see. Linda asks, could you please tell me what type of medium that is on your inspiration wall in the upper corner? They are on the upper right side from my view, and they are squares of color. Let me look back there really quick, Linda. Oh, are you okay? Indy. You guys hear Indy underneath. She's at my toes again, my little dog. You want to say hi to everybody? Little one? Up here. Let's see, if you're probably looking at me. Yeah, so up right, that is actually Procreate. It is a canvas that I pulled color from, and I printed the color palette that large from Procreate. So those let's see, that right there. Yeah, so that's what I said. That's what I was saying about how I pull color from Procreate and then use it on my inspiration wall or inside a sketchbook. I will print them out, either hang them up, or I'll collage or glue them into my actual sketchbook. So have fun with grabbing color palettes in Procreate. It is really fun. You import a photo, and all you have to do is start picking a color, and then picking a color out of the photo, and then take a brush and make a little scribble. And you can pull a color palette. So that particular color palette was from it looks really dark right now up there, but it was from my, what collection was that? Where's my iPad? It's from my Rustic Winter collection, I believe. And so let me see if I can find it before we go. Oh, and I have one more question too. Let's see. I'll show you really quickly. I think I could find it. Is it this one? I think this might be, well, this one's similar. I know. Indy is telling me she's hungry. I'm supposed to feed her at 12, and it's already 1240. Hold on, little one. I think it's similar to this one, but I think it's actually might have been close to the one that I showed you. I'll have to find the actual one. I can't find it. I don't want to take too much time, but I pulled the colors from these two pictures and then used different brushes. So have fun experimenting with Procreate. And then I just printed on my regular printer. I have a laser jet printer. Linda says yes, those. Okay, good. Linda says, would you ever consider putting together packets of scraps, extra sample pieces, etc. for sale in bundles? Ah, Linda, it's funny you asked that. I actually did for a long time. I used to make these little collage packs. This was something I would sell. They were like pieces of my papers. It's hard to see. There's like a glare, but you see like there's like 5 different papers in there. Those are all hand painted. But I actually am destashing my studio as we speak. So I'm actually going to do some, like a bunch of exactly what you just said. Packets of samples of some of my work. Some of it is like painted. Some of it is dyed fabric. That are not specific to like what I'm creating for the Swatch Studio, but there'll be some like collage packs. There'll be also some gently used art supply boxes. I'm cleaning out my entire studio and also a lot of my teaching supplies, and I'm going to be putting together these priority mailboxes that just have a bunch of different supplies in them. Some it'll have paints, inks. I have so much product that I've used for classes that is not being used because I'm not teaching in person right now. And just lots of extra supplies, printmaking. I'm going to create a printmaking box that has lots of found tools. So I will be sharing that soon. I'm going to put up a little special like open studio sale, and actually probably in June timeframe, early June. I may, if I can squeeze it in May, I'm going to do 2 virtual live shopping events. You can shop my studio. And I'm still working out the details of how I'm going to do this, but basically they're going to be small private groups. So you have to sign up for it. You'll have to reserve your space with a deposit that then gets applied to whatever you buy. So you either will get if you don't find anything during the sale, you'll get a credit to my shop that you can use in the future. It's just because I need to make sure that if you say you want to show up for this virtual open studio, you will. So it'll be a like $20 deposit, and then you can then use that. You'll get a $20 credit if you buy something during my studio sale. And then you basically make your money back because you are just using it to reserve your spot, because there only will be limited spots for these live sessions. So I'm really excited because I have so much stuff. I've been going through my inventory in my garage studio and in my paint making studio, and there is a lot of stuff that I really want to pare down and get it to other homes that could be using them. So that is coming up in May and June. So be on the lookout. I'll be sending more about that. And then before we wrap, thank you everybody who is here still. But I wanted to tell you also one more thing. I am a guest in Robin Marie Smith's new audio summit, and it's all about journals and sketchbooks. I thought it would be a great way to end this, to tell you. She just announced the lineup today, and I can't wait to listen to all of it. But I had a lot of fun talking to her. We chatted for probably about an hour. I've known Robin Marie probably for maybe, I don't know, 15 or so, maybe more years. I met her when she came to take one of my classes, and we have kept in touch ever since, and we talk a lot about business, and we used to talk a lot about business, and and art journaling and sketchbooks. So we had a really awesome and beautiful conversation just about my work and like my creative process. So I can't wait for you all to hear more about that. You'll get to hear that along with, I think there's, I don't know the total, 8. I think there may be 7 or 8. I should have counted everybody who's in there, but there's some really great speakers. Pam Carricker is one. She's a good friend too. So it is fun. If you go, I'll be sending out an email soon with more information, but if you go to my Instagram story today, I put a little thing in there so you can see how to register. It's all free, and you get to listen to all of our conversations on the go. So all you have to do is open it up in your podcast app, and you have hours of inspiration that you can go through, and it's all about art journals and sketchbooks. So Mary says, I just signed up for that. Awesome. Yes. So it'll be fun. And each one of us has a conversation with Robin Marie. And then there's some fun freebies there's a fun freebie I offered and a discount to one of my courses. So you'll get to see all of that. I think it actually opens on the 19th of May. So if you are watching the replay in this, there is a limited time to sign up and a limited time to listen to it if once you've signed up, I think. Unless you download it to your podcast app, then you have it to listen to forever. So have some fun collecting color for your sketchbooks and your journals. And if you want to join me for the Swatch Studio, make sure you do it before tomorrow. And also, if you join for a year or for the quarterly subscription, then you get access to the little mini sketchbook class that I'm going to be teaching. And then go sign up for Robin Marie's Audio Summit. That is it's going to be a lot of fun, I'm sure. Thank you, everybody who joined me live. And thank you for those of you who are watching on YouTube. Let me just pull YouTube up really quick because I just realized that I probably didn't say hi to everybody there too. Wendy, Miriam, nice to have you all. Chris says, I attended your class at Art and Soul 2 decades or so ago. Yes. Art and Soul was the first place I taught at in 2000, like big mixed media retreat back in 2004. I actually, before I go, I'll show one last thing. Some of you, it's funny that this is sitting there. All of you are like making comments and things leading into things that I was going to share. This is what I taught at Art and Soul back in almost 20 years ago. It was this journal called The Book of Ruins. And it is one of my favorite journals to date. This thing is, it's 20 years old, but it's still got a lot. You can see my style in there. Lots of dyed pages with wax. There's wax in here. You can see the paper towel. So these are all paper towels. So this was what I taught in my first class at Art and Soul. This journal with look at the bindings I used to do. I don't really make these journals anymore, but I sold a lot of these journals back then. And it was one of the very first places I ever taught, like on like the big mixed media stage. So thanks, Chris, for being here for so long. Yeah, she said, I don't see on here how to get your offerings. Yes, I will put the links in. If you're watching this on the YouTube replay, I will put the links in the description there after this, and you can go there. But if you just go to my website, tracybautistacolor.com, you can find everything on there too. The new program is called SWATCH Studio, and then all of my courses and my paints are in there. We didn't talk a lot about my paints, my handmade paints, but you can see a lot of the previous collections, and I have a quarterly paint collection that comes out every quarter. So you can see all of those there in my shop at Tracy Bautista Color. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for spending your Saturday with me. For those of you who are moms, happy Mother's Day. If you're a pet mama like me, happy Mother's Day too. And I know it's a hard time for many of you if you don't have kids, and we're never able to have kids. So I send you my love because I can definitely am there with you. So have a beautiful rest of your weekend, and I will see you all the next time. Thanks everybody for joining me. Sending you lots of love from my studio. I'll see you later. Bye.